Awesome. We are live. Hello, everyone. We have an amazing guest today, Anish. Just to remind what we are doing here, Ethereum has been very giving to the ecosystem, and I've been a recipient of that. So personally, I thought of coming up with volunteers and say, hey, we want to celebrate Ethereum. We want to celebrate the 10 years of Ethereum anniversary coming on July 31st and create 10 weeks of content. So we are handpicking some amazing speakers who has been in the Ethereum space for a long time. A couple of days ago, we had the Ethereum Foundation employees themselves coming in and sharing their story. Today, we have Anish for that. And also we have Marv here who's also helping out with the content and everything around that. So Anish, do you want to introduce yourself? I have a story I can share, but I'll go after you make your introduction.
So my name is Anish Mohammed. I've been in cryptography and security for this probably last 25 years, give or take. Went to grad school to cryptography. As for crypto, as we see it, I've been involved as a cypherpunk. So I used to hang around on ski.crypt, and then from there I got into something called the Silk List. So this is the Indian mailing list that's run by somebody called Uday. And through him, I got into the cryptography mailing list, the cryptography mailing list. And yeah, I mean, I didn't make much of it. So, you know, things went on. I saw the white, so-called white paper come out. I looked at it. I had worked on micropayment systems in 2000. So to me, I understood the problem of offline payment systems. So I'm like, okay, everybody has to believe for this thing to be real. And yep. And then talked to a bunch of people. I've talked to Amir, and in 2011, 2012, if I remember correctly, we actually ran our first workshop in Hackerspace in London, teaching other people how to mine Bitcoin. At
Awesome.
that point in time, CUDA was there, and you could actually use the GPU to do it. And in 2013, Ripple asked me if I'd be an advisor. I became an advisor, and then that thread continued. Ethereum happened in 2014. Again, a bunch of people that I knew got involved in Ethereum. So Vinay is an example. Sal knew Vinay prior to Ethereum. And Victor Tron, he's actually come to one of my talks, same thing. And yeah, I mean, that probably will go into the story of how I got into Ethereum Swarm. And then somewhere along the line, there was tokens, and I got interested in all the normal stuff called token engineering and the thing called zero knowledge, and the journey continued. So last 5 years, I worked on a privacy protocol called Panther Protocol, and yeah, here I am. I'm still here, and I'm working on a verifiable platform called Orbifold, and that's the next journey I see. So Panther has been transferred over to the foundation. So kind of, I thought I was a free man, and then suddenly I realized, a bunch of problems that are, at the edge of existential risk, where, we have all these problems that humanity as a whole has always been worried about, and I've been worried about, and I've always worked on. So, if I were to continue rambling, I would say I've been working on ethics of AI and had a charity in the UK, registered charity in the UK for the last 12 years, give or take. So, and
Amazing.
I had some other work that I did with Anders Sandberg as well. And all of this kind of, sometimes life takes its own journey, right? Like you end up with a bunch of things. And, that leads, one thing leads to the other. Like somewhere in between, there was
Yeah.
this thing that Vitalik organized called Zalu. You have been heard. It's something he organized in 2023. I got dragged in to run the AI X risk track along with another Indian dude. And, he goes, yeah, why can't we do this in India? And that resulted in Zubrama in India. So in Jan this year, we actually ran Zubrama. And, all this thing, there were like a bunch of gut microbiome experiments that we ran. We needed some, cryptographic primitives to provide privacy for people to do the experiment. And we were thinking, oh, there's also this problem about security for BCI. And, the people who do science don't generally understand zero knowledge, don't understand
No.
MPCs, don't understand FHEs, and these people are the key people who should really understand all these things because they are the people who are, representing humanity in terms of the bleeding edge. And that
Yeah.
resulted in the idea called Lobbyfold, which is like, how about making this easy for them, have a Scratch, MIT Scratch kind of interface for them to actually do all these things where they don't really need to actually understand all the primitives per se, but they understand their domain, they understand the
Yeah.
fuzzy security implications. And that's how Lobbyfold was born, and this is where I am. It's not official yet,
Amazing.
so yeah,
I would love to get more into AI a little bit later in the conversation because I
sure,
think it's very much going across paths with crypto, and I think we are
yeah,
already here. I
yeah,
always worry about what the use cases and everything, but
yeah,
I would love to get there. But
sure,
more I'm interested is like you mentioned that you got introduced to crypto way before crypto the way it was called, and
yes,
you read the initial Bitcoin white paper
yep,
as well. So I
yep,
want to actually start the journey earlier before Ethereum.
yep.
And when you read the Bitcoin white paper at the very first time, what
Yeah.
was your reaction? You mentioned that if everyone accepts this is a big thing, that was your initial thought. But other than that, like what was your conviction? How did you think about
Oh,
what role you
because
want to participate in it?
no, I didn't have any thoughts on role in participating in any of these things. So typically, I generally pick up stuff and I get involved neck deep. So at that point in time, I was already neck deep in two things. So one was cloud. So in 2007, I got involved in the cloud. I actually met Andrew Jassy in a pub in London in 2007, Feb, most likely. So my Amazon
Hmm.
Web Services account is from 2007. So at that point in
Wow.
time, you only had Fedora. Okay, that's where you have an SSH and you have Fedora. I ended up, running, some emulator to run Windows 2003 servers. Don't ask me why all of this, but like that's that. And the second
It's
thread that
early.
was happening, yeah, and the second thread that was happening was I was heavily involved in open source robotics. So I don't
Mm.
know if you recognize Chris Anderson, the Wired magazine guy.
No.
So he has this thing called DIY drones, and I
Mm.
got involved as one of the guys who did navigational algorithms. So to me, this was like, okay, there's another thing that's happening. This typically tech happens. I recognize, oh, look, this thing is going to really be moving the needle, and you just come in and try to do it. So to me, when Bitcoin came along, I recognized definitely the paradigm has shifted. So a few years ago, I was working on micropayment systems, and I recognized what micropayment systems and electronic payment systems as a thing is going to change. Like if you look at the history of money, and this is like a tiny, tiny,
Yeah.
tiny bit, but this tiny bit is going to change. Like a lot of those things, like most of the stuff you think about, you see things for a very long period of time. Think about the paper money in that sense, right?
Yeah.
A very, very long periods of time, there was no paper money. Suddenly, paper money comes, off it goes. It changes everything. And then look at all the financial instruments, derivatives, options. They've only been around for less than 100 years in that sense, but they've changed everything, right? So I clearly understood the impact it might have, but I wasn't really prepared for how all the things would go. Like if I were
So
telling that, I'll be lying to myself.
so what was your first uh getting into crypto moment? Like what was your first project? What was your thought? And like, hey, I'm committing. Like you were one day you're doing like robotics, one year you're doing cloud, you're doing cloud security. And what was the first into crypto or coin moment for you?
So I wouldn't put it that way. So I remember reading Bitcoin white paper, and then I did write to, like, there were various emails flying around in various groups. So
Yeah.
I was very clear on this, mechanism, which essentially is the fact that, okay, typically the challenge is like when you have payment systems, you transfer value. When the value is transferred, the value has been transferred from point A to point A to point B, and like imagine, I am transferring some money to you, Chinmay, and for some reason the transfer didn't go through, but somebody else has to be online to actually take the transfer and give it to you, right? So this
Yeah.
mechanism, in that sense, and this cryptognomic rails in that sense, which is the basic thing that was happening. I saw that and I thought, okay, this is pretty interesting, but I didn't have the kind of what everybody calls a moment, right? So you see it, you recognize it, and then you go, okay, you need to make sure that everybody understands it, and you go along and then help other people understand it. I can't remember my first
Very
talk that I
practical
gave.
approach.
Yeah, it's just like, then I ran into Amir, and that's the official first event that I was involved in helping other
Amir
people was the
from
Amir Taki.
Moloch.
Amir Taki.
Oh, okay,
Amir
never mind.
Taki. Yeah. He was one of the guys who was early on. He was one of the core devs in Bitcoin ecosystem, and he did one of
Gotcha.
the first wallets as well. He's in Switzerland. I
Interesting.
haven't seen him. Like, I saw him briefly in Chiang Mai, but I haven't seen him after that. I was supposed to meet him in Switzerland, but I couldn't meet him. Good
No,
guy.
that's totally
Yeah.
cool. That's
Yeah.
totally cool. So let's fast forward to 2014-15 when Ethereum comes about. And so what was your first introduction to Ethereum? Tell me more about
Oh,
it, and what was your reaction when that happened?
okay. So as I was saying, like a lot of the people who are in the Ethereum ecosystem seem to have been people I knew from before. So Vinay, for example, I think I told you I was involved in the drone. So when various talks happen, I would go talk about open source robotics. He'd be talking about this thing called Hexayat, right? So you should look it up. It's the thing that he was very famous for before this. So I knew him,
Hmm.
and similarly, I knew a bunch of other people. I also knew Victor Tron. So paper came out, I read it, and to be very honest, I wasn't like super enthused in that sense because Codius was the smart contract language what Ripple had developed, and it was there around 2014. And to me, it was like, okay, you can have a smart contract language. Well done. You know, nobody's expecting that takeoff, right? Like that's the bit that's required. It's like I always
Yeah,
tell everybody, all layer ones, like religious systems or religious beliefs, there will be a prophet or an apostle, whoever that is, who will actually really convince everybody. So developers are like believers. They have to really believe in it to learn the language. So
yeah.
TG happens, then there's
Did we lose him? Yeah, we lost your audio for some reason, Anish. We can't hear you.
oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes.
All
We don't know
right,
what
okay.
happened there.
All right, I have no idea. I mean, I'm on a hotel Wi-Fi, so I have no idea what's happening. So let me
I'll
let me
go.
repeat. Yeah. Let me repeat
Please.
once more. So the thing I was saying is like all layer ones are like religions, right? So
Yes.
you, as a founder of a layer one, has a religious belief. The religious beliefs get your developers, who are your believers, to come into the ecosystem. They put in their time, learn the language, right? And
Yep.
they will be rewarded in the afterlife, which is after TGE. So they have to really
Yep.
believe in your ecosystem for this to happen. So to me, this was an obvious thing. If layer one has to take off, this has to happen, and the prophet has to convince enough of people to build a critical mass to have this
That's
J
amazing.
shape take off. Yeah. So
So you're absolutely right. So let me just, because we have roughly 25 people there who's viewing
yeah,
right now. I just want to tell them
yeah,
what we are doing. We are celebrating the 10th anniversary of Ethereum. We are basically still handpicking some amazing builders in the space before even Ethereum was there. Some people joined after Ethereum, and trying to just get more builder vibe going. This is a volunteer run. We are not funded by anyone. We are trying to stay away from the hype and everything around it. However, if you're listening to this, I would really appreciate if you can like, tweet, and retweet everything about this so that we can have more people on this builder ecosystem and vibe. Anish, I have one question. You mentioned really interesting point here, which is all
Sure.
L1s are religion. That's
Yep.
absolutely true. And right now, Solana versus Ethereum is probably the biggest L1 debate out there. But you mentioned that XRP had a programming language, which I didn't know that it was there since very beginning.
Okay, so I want to really make sure it's understood fully. So
Okay, tell me.
there was a proposal for programming like a smart contract language called Codius, Codius. So if you,
Hmm.
yeah, you can possibly see the Ripple's announcement about Codius, and at some point in time between 2014 and 2015, it died out, right? I mean, there was
Oh,
no, yeah, I mean, there was no real. I don't know what happened.
adoption.
Yeah, I mean, not really adoption question, like internal questions and external questions. Like there's this thing that happens in the XRP ecosystem where they want to have some programming availability and then they decide not to have it. And I don't know. I mean, I'm in no position to comment on any of those things. So my take is like there was proposal, there was if I'm not mistaken, there was a document. I don't know what it was called. Yeah.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So what, like, in the Ethereum comes to the scene, and then in couple of years time frame, it just takes over completely. So what
Uh,
was your involvement in the Ethereum ecosystem as a builder and everything around that, if any at that point in time? And what do you think were the characteristics of Ethereum that basically attracted people? Because there were some other languages, other ways you can like put programming on top of Bitcoin. What was the special about Ethereum at that point in time?
so I will be very honest. When I used to give talks in 2017, I had a list of top. I mean, this is from 2015 to 2017, right? Like
Yeah, it's okay.
2015, 2016, 2017, and like I used to have like top 10 cryptocurrencies in that sense. The amount of churn at that point in time was quite significant. It's very hard for anybody to predict, which one of them is going to be which, right? So I think in terms of Ethereum, I think Vitalik being an absolutely amazing prophet is one of the key reasons. So if you look at
True.
any L1 that was successful, whether it's Cardano or whether it's Ethereum or others, one of the key characteristics goes back to the thing I said about, religions and prophets. You need to have an amazingly charismatic, incredibly eloquent in terms of writing, that's what it is, then that layer one has the higher chance of success. And then the other thing you need to recognize is all L1s were built on top of Bitcoin in one sense or the other, right? So if you were
Yeah.
to think about Ethereum, possibly this is why Bitcoin really didn't take off. Sorry, Ripple didn't take off the way it did because it wasn't attached to Bitcoin. So in that sense, Vitalik was the editor for Bitcoin Magazine. When he had the ICO, he actually used Bitcoin for that. So liquidity from that moved into this, right? So this is the transition happened. So Bitcoin took off, Ethereum took off, and then that takeoff was thing. And the other bit that happened is like, there is always this second mover, third mover advantage in that sense where you kind of convince people to join a larger movement, and it takes
Mm.
this slow uptake, and then suddenly takes off. So Ethereum, if you were there for the first Bitcoin, like DevCon 1, right? When
Yeah.
DevCon 1 happened, it was like less than like 250 people. So I remember being in King's Cross when DevCon 1 was happening. I went there and I was a bit upset that they asked me to pay for that. So I didn't go there officially. So I went and saw all the guys, I had evening, if my recollection is right, we all had um, drinks, so we had dinner, right? So Juan was there, like a bunch of people that were there, right? So that was the kind of like, if you ask me in 2014, like 2014, 2015, is going to take off like that. I wouldn't have had a clue. Like, there's no way that you'll be able to recognize that, right? And
Interesting.
then, yeah, by like 2017, it all changed. Like, I remember going to DEF CON 2017 in Cancun, and it was a huge amount of people, right? And given that Cancun was considered like a bit more interesting place, I was pleasantly surprised, and all three floors of that whole place was fully filled out. Right, that's how it was.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I have not had a chance to attend DevCon at that time, so this has been
Yeah,
super, super cool. Mar,
yeah,
again, you're here. If you have any questions for Anish, feel free to jump in. You said you had
Yep,
something
yep.
about profits. Take over.
Yeah, I think what you said about the profits in crypto being a very important reason for this message coming across. I thought that was I wholeheartedly believe that point. I think crypto is more religion right now than it is tech because there's so much belief that is driving all this building, right? So do you think that there is a set of characteristics in the profits that we seek in this crypto space? Is there like a defining set of traits that separates our Ethereum profits from the Bitcoin profits to the other profits on the L1s that you think are attracting a kind of builder towards putting this infrastructure in place? Is there a story there?
I will struggle to classify that. I am not an anthropologist, but
Mhm.
like, I'm just an observer. Like, I sit there on the side and think about things, and I'm sure by now it should be very clear that I'm one of those idiots who spends more time thinking about things than doing anything, right? Like, a
That's
significant
all.
amount of time thinking about things. And whenever there's a paradigm shift that happens, for example, zero knowledge, I spend so much time thinking about it, like, and typically very, very early. So I've been interested in zero knowledge for 20, 24, 25 years now, right? So I pick all those things up and sit there thinking and pulling my hair out. That's what I do, and like, think about how this happens, that happens. So the reason I thought about the religious construct was, like, I looked at how I have to admit my influence on my thinking of other people, right? So one of my mentors is Simon Wadley. Okay, so he's like a very interesting guy. If you don't know him, you should look him up. He actually understands changes in ecosystems. So he maps. He has this thing called mapping. So it's like, he describes how a thing goes from where it is to where it needs to be. So it's like, evolution of an ecosystem. So this I met him in the cloud days. It's like 2007, 2009. So I think he was the person who actually allowed me give a talk about cloud security in 2009 or something. Like, goes that back, right? So I kind of recognize all these patterns in technology adoption, and I was thinking, this is like, money is all about belief, right?
It
So
is.
the fact that if I had my wallet, and if I were to give you whatever this money is, right? I don't know what this money is. This is euro, right? The reason that you believe in this, the key word is belief, right? And in there it writes something, and you believe that the person who wrote it actually is going to keep their word, right? And that's all a belief. So given it's money, everything else, there's something else that you can actually tie it to. And money, it becomes all belief. And and different people have different kinds of belief systems, and always there's this wars between these belief systems, and there's I would say an equilibrium state between different belief systems, and they push that way and that way, and like, if you go back in time, you see the crusades and stuff like that, and like, you know what I mean, like, but I haven't seen crusades kind of thing happening in layer one wars in that sense. So there have been layer one wars ongoing. Also, in one sense of speaking, there are layer two wars ongoing, right? But
To a
the
point.
thing that, yeah, to a point, and you can actually see, by just looking at a founder, that some of the founders outshine others just by the ability to actually convince people, irrespective of wherever the ecosystem is. Like, I can't
Yeah,
name names, but I'm sure you understand. You understand what I mean,
I know
right?
exactly what
Like,
you were talking about.
yeah, absolutely. That very, like, in some senses speaking, if they were to find an alternate career, they could be a tele-evangelist in the US television network. So Apologies if anybody is ever going to think about it and get
Wow.
offended. Yeah, like literally, like that's the kind of charisma and the ability to articulate these people have. So once you see them, you go, wow, this, and like you need to have a crux of technology. So, you could support yourself with that. So, once that happens, then, it just takes off, right? So,
That
the
is very
stronger, yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
So that is very very interesting approach. I wanna get a little technical now because I remember first time I met you in 2017-18 when you were on a stage. You were talking about zero knowledge proofs. We were in Toronto. We grabbed dinner the day before the presentation and you mentioned about ZK and like come to my talk. I showed up. I'm like, what the hell this is? And the explanation of ZK the first time I heard, and I'm like, this is very interesting. I'm going to definitely butcher it. So I want you to explain what zero knowledge is
sure,
to start with. Like most basic example, we have some viewers who are technical, some are not. So maybe
yeah,
explaining from both sides that will be perfect.
sure. So the way I would describe zero knowledge is like, in technology, there are things that actually shift the paradigm, right? So, there is the world till then and the world after, right? In my mind, it's one of those technologies where it really changed the way we prove things. So the way I describe it is like I'm in a hotel room right now. My hotel room has one door, and imagine I want to prove to you, Chinmay, that I have the ability to escape from this room without using the door, right? So you and I are there in this protocol. There is a room, and then I am the prover. You are the verifier. You are the one verifying, right? So the protocol, the simplest way the protocol is run is like you let me into the room, you close the door behind me, and then you wait for a couple of minutes and you see if I am able to come out of this room without opening the door, right? If you see me outside the door, Rafi, you close the door in like 5 minutes, you know for a fact that I have the ability to escape from the room, but you don't know how I do it
Yeah,
because that knowledge is zero knowledge. Essentially, you don't know how I do it. And you can run this multiple times. You could run it a million times, but you would still not be able to know how I do this, right? I do it or I don't do it. And with a very high probability that if you run it for 100 times, that 100st one, you have you've already tried this 100 times and you had the probability of 100 successes in 100 times. So the next time you are like, 100 out of 100, this guy's going to come out, right? You see what I'm saying?
absolutely.
That is just, yeah, that's the thing. And then there's two pieces. One is, oh, I forgot the two terminologies that are there: completeness and soundness, right? So the
Yeah,
soundness, the completeness and soundness, generally speaking, what it means is like, the between the prover and the verifier, there are two things that needs to happen, and you need to really think of it in interpersonal relationships where you have arguments with some other people who are very close to you, and you want them to believe what you're saying, right? And this is where it should blow your mind. So if you have a zero knowledge protocol running between the two parties, the prover can only prove to the verifier if and only if they are telling the truth. Okay, number one.
yep.
That's like
That's number one.
super. That's a super powerful thing. You need to understand what that means. Like when you have an argument with somebody about something, you don't want to really reveal the details, but you can only prove to the verifier that is true if and only if you tell the truth. And as long as you are telling the truth, and at some point in time, the other party will be convinced. That's the completeness, right? Soundness and
Yeah,
completeness. So that is the real paradigm shift in terms of what I would call zero knowledge, right? So can you
that's
imagine this?
amazing.
Yeah,
So, like one example that is given to me on a consistent basis, and I love this, is ability to show your proof that you're above 18 without telling your birth date at a
yeah,
bar, right? Like if I go
yeah,
to a bar and if I show up and then they say, "Hey, show me your ID," and I'm like, "I don't want to show you my ID, but I'm 18 plus." And then the tussle starts, and in this case, I am the prover and they are the verifier. So in this case, if I can prove that I'm 18 plus without telling my birthday, that's what zero knowledge proof is about. So how I do it is a different problem, and for that the entire purpose is. But why is this important on a technical level for L2s? That's something that I would love to understand. Like, how does ZK knowledge proof allows, ZK proofs basically allow L2s to scale over L1. That's something very, very important for people to understand.
Could you repeat the last bit for me, because you got
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I can repeat.
Mm,
So basically, zero knowledge proof is important. We understand in day to day, but why zero knowledge proof is important in the world of crypto?
mm.
Why is it important in the world of Ethereum, especially in
Okay.
the as per method of layer one and layer two relationship?
Okay. So some bits are slightly more political than others, but I can tell you why zero knowledge
Okay.
is important. So one of the things that was fundamental in terms of zero knowledge that actually happened was this Merkle trees, right? So until then, zero knowledge proofs were interactive proofs. So remember, setting outside. Excuse me.
No, it's all
So
good.
what has happened now is like you could convert that into a non-interactive, right? So
Yep.
first of the schemes that happened was in 2013. I think it was called Pinocchio, and it was using Merkle trees to actually have this thing fixed, right? So you had a fiat-Shamir. You can actually take an interactive protocol and have this trick called the fiat-Shamir trick to actually convert that into a non-interactive one, right? Interactive is like you have to talk to the other person. You have so many questions, ask forwards and backwards. Non-interactive is you can arbitrarily ask one question, you get an answer, and that's it. You're done, right? So this is the real shift that actually happened, and that's how snarks were born, right? So the non-interactive knowledge proof, right? And then Starks were born, which is in 2017. So remember, I was talking to you about DevCon. So DevCon was in November, end of October, November. A week before DevCon, the paper for Stark was published, and then Eli Ben Sasson actually gave the talk in DevCon, and the whole room was overflowing. You had to be in the. I was literally outside. I just managed to show my head inside, so there was so much of people there, right? So and one of the things we need to recognize is Ethereum Foundation, I think, gave like 4 million, and there was this thinking that all this problems we have in terms of throughput, we will have zero knowledge proofs and to solve some of this, right? So that was the thinking at that point. So yes, if you have ZK rollups and you have the ability to do rollups, it is very possible that you can actually have very high throughput, right? Definitely possible. And and similarly, you could have all the nice properties. The nicer properties is like you could actually have an arbitrary set of things, whether it's KYC or KYT or proof of ownership, or all the various things that in a public chain is pretty. Let's imagine a world where you actually have a wallet and you walk around the road, everybody on the street knows every bloody transaction in your lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's very risky, right?
No, can you ever imagine that? Can you ever imagine that? Nobody believes that, right? So why
No.
is it that the blockchains, layer ones think that's a normal thing to happen? So to me, that is not a normal thing to happen. We need to think about ways to have privacy to the level that we normally have privacy, which is like, you and I, when we go to a shop, we don't tell everybody in the shop. Okay, in India, if you actually go to a shop and you buy, the guy who is like the shop owner from the back of the thing will shout out, "Oh, okay,
Give me
somebody else on the
this.
other side." Yeah. But outside of that, this thing doesn't happen, right? You don't walk into a shop and you're not going to shout out. So everybody in the shop knows, okay, this guy's going to buy a kilo of banana. No, that's not how this is going to happen, right? So, in my mind, definitely there is two parts to this. One part is throughput. The other part is privacy. We can't actually have, uh, everybody having all the transactions, all being public, and achieving the results we want. That's one thing. The other part of the equation, what I would say, in terms of throughput, is like, yes, there are other things that are there that will help transaction throughput, and zero knowledge might be one of the other tools in our tooling that will help us. And you kind of asked me about L1s and L2s, relationship between L1s and
Yeah.
L2s. Okay,
Yeah.
so That is a very tricky one, right? You could think of L2s as L1s attached to the side of another L1, right? So the
Yeah.
way I would describe it is like, imagine you want to actually have an L1. It takes it up. Going back to your question about how Ethereum took off and all those things. Once Ethereum took off, the cryptoeconomic security margin of Ethereum reached wherever it is. So if you
Yeah.
were to go back in time and see what happens to other L1s when they break off, classic example is the case of Ethereum Classic, right? So DAO happened. There
Yeah.
was two philosophies. Philosophy one says the code is law, and the other one says sometimes things go wrong. And Ethereum decided things go wrong, they roll it back.
Things go on.
Yeah. So, and what had happened is Ethereum Classic by 2018 or 2019, their proof of work security margin has gone so low that people were able to actually do the thing, right? So there you go. So what you want to do is you want to have the benefits of cryptographic security margin of an existing L1, right? So if you were to build an L2 and you attach it to Ethereum, hey, day one, without with zero cost, you pretty much, when I say zero cost, it's the cost involved in getting security margin.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get the security margin of Ethereum, right? And you
So you're
have all the
borrowing
nice
Ethereum
characteristics.
security, and you can build the entire stack on top of it.
Absolutely. Off you go. That's literally how it
Absolutely.
goes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I would love to shift to a little bit in terms of what you're doing these days, but let me just remind
Sure.
everyone what we are doing right now. We are celebrating 10 years of Ethereum. We are bringing amazing builders in this space, highlighting them, and then bringing them up to the stage and ask them to share their stories. It is going to be roughly 10 weeks of content. We are in week number 2. Last week, we had amazing speakers as well from the Ethereum Foundation itself. If you're listening, if you're new, make sure that you uh, subscribe, or sorry, you follow, you retweet, and make sure that you invite everyone that you know in the Ethereum space who wants to participate. If you want to speak as well, ping me or ping one of our team members, and we'll go from there. Today we have Anish, who has been in the crypto space even before it was called crypto, or even before it was called Bitcoin. One story that I remember, Anish, we come to all like it stuck with me is in 2017 we met and we were like, so what's your consulting rate? And he basically answers me 1 Bitcoin, and I'm like, I want to ask him, is it still
No,
the
that's
same rate?
okay. So I think what you're referring to is like a very specific episode that happened. So this
Yes.
goes back to uh, Zcash was born, and
Yep.
the set of people around Zcash, they all had a non-compete.
Yep.
So it happens that one entity, who I shall not name, um, very well-known miner, wanted to actually replace the hash function in Zcash with SHA-256. So there was a
Mm.
offer on the market for somebody to help them with all of this. So help them with the setup process, help them with the cryptography, and the going rate was half a BTC and 0.05% of the the new Zcash
Yeah.
equivalent mine for the next 4 years. So that's probably what I was referring to.
No,
I
no,
at
we,
no
we were
point in
joking
time
about that.
Okay. No point in time have I ever charged a BTC an hour. I mean, again, BTC an hour is good rate these days, but
In the past, it was not much, but again, that was the
no.
joke that we had, running joke at that time. So no, absolutely. So tell me more. Like, what are you building these days? How are you coming about? I know you're just moving on from the Panther protocol. Like, I think it's sufficient enough to self-sustained. So you're focusing on something else. So please tell me
So,
more.
okay. So the thing, it was kind of a thing that happens when other things happen in that sense. It's like, by like end of last year, we actually had most of most of Panther protocol kind of done, and we had the source code transferred over to the foundation, IP transferred to the foundation, and the foundation being moved around, and all those things happening, right?
Yep.
So what literally happened was like, and Jan 2025, I was already doing Zugrama. And while I was doing Zoograma, we wanted to do some experiment called gut microbiome experiment. We call it ZooSci.
How
Essentially,
do you spell
everybody
Zugrama? Because I wanna make sure that everyone
ZU
gets it.
ZUGRAMA, Zoograma.
Zugrama. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Please continue.
yeah. So I, the storyline was like, we had a dietary intervention. You take samples of gut microbiome. Yeah, let's see, somebody in Bangalore who kind of agreed to help us with sequencing all of this. And now for all the participants that had actually participated, I believe the initial report is out. So the protocol was like, you come in, you take a sample, then you're given a dietary intervention. So you were given healthy diet. And then the guy, after three weeks, it was collected and, we analyzed. So we wanted something to actually look at all of this data and be able to do the things that you want to do in open science, right? And we were
Mhm.
talking to different sets of people, and we were looking for a mechanism to do this. And then we suddenly realized, some of the pieces that you would expect everybody to have, it's not that. And and we also did talk to a couple of BCI people, and and what we were recognizing is like, okay, there's like all these people who do science, and they really don't understand, learning zero knowledge, learning algebraic number theory, learning MPCs, learning FHEs. It's like a non-trivial effort, right? And if
Mhm.
you are a scientist who, you do wet science, which is like you go to a lab and do shit, going and doing abstract number theory is unlikely for you to do. And the return on investment may be very low, right? There are
Sure.
nutcases who have actually gone to med school and then go to grad school to do cryptography like me. Those are anomalies. Those are rare anomalies. But
Yeah.
you can't expect everybody to be an anomaly. So you want to enable, because these people are the people who actually do real science. And one of the things that if you haven't already noticed, is like the risk for humanity from all these things that's happening is increasing, right? So, as a part of this whole idea about Orbifold, I actually gave a talk in Switzerland, which is like Zuzalo in Switzerland. And I kind of pointed out a bunch of things. One was about the hybrid risk. Like hybrid risk is like when you have a combination of AI plus cyber risk plus bio risk, what happens, right? So I kind of
Mm.
highlighted the fact that, Anthropic has been looking at the security of, LLMs. They were describing the current model status level 2. And I'm like, no, it's actually already level 3. The reason for that was like, in my mind, the paths you can take, when you have parallel paths, the probability is a summation of all these probabilities, not sequential,
Yeah.
right? So,
Absolutely.
so this is my easy reasoning. So I was saying like, and I mean, I can send you the link to my talk so you can actually listen to it and you will understand what I'm saying. And literally like a couple of days ago, they just updated the thing from ASL2 to ASL3. And similarly, I said, LLMs are going to be used for doing zero-day discoveries, right? For finding vulnerabilities. And literally
Yeah.
2 days ago, somebody did it, right? And the thing that I was saying is that we need to have cryptographic guardrails, right? And these guardrails will be able to do things to prevent this kind of risk from escalating and taking over, right? So, how can you actually do, uh, what I would call, global surveillance, right? So the global
Sure.
surveillance, if you want to do global surveillance, one of the things you want to do is like, you have to have cryptographic mechanisms for various things that's happening and making sure that, all the things are within the parameters that you described and none of the things are outside of the parameters. And at the same time, you ask me what's usefulness of zero knowledge. This is a very good example of usefulness of zero knowledge, right? So you literally have all the things happening. You don't know the exact sequence of things happening, but you know for sure that is not what is actually happening, right? So this is literally the whole idea. So how can you actually build cryptographic mechanisms to actually achieve the results you want and be able to control the overall risk, right? So, and Orbifold literally is this mechanism by which, people who are researchers and say synthetic biology or brain-computer interface or doing, even DeFi for that matter. But, how many people in DeFi know zero knowledge, right? Let's ask
Very
this
little.
question. Yeah, right. There you
Less
go.
than
So
100 people. I don't think many people understand zero knowledge to a level where they can implement it end to end. That's
yeah.
like less than 100 people in the world.
So just to be more precise, so if you were to really think about people who actually have a name scheme where you are a author of, there are less than 100 people. You're absolutely right, like 83 or 87 people. So it so happens, for whatever it's worth, between me and my larger cryptographic research team, and one of them is actually my co-founder for Ovifold, we have a scheme where we replaced Lagrange with monomial. So that's, one of the things that we were thinking, like, look at this. We have a bunch of us who actually have done like a 50 years of doing cryptography and security, slightly around that, because like both of us,
Okay.
he did PhD before me, and I came in after.
It's
We actually share
combined
one. Yeah,
experience.
yes. So you were like, okay, we understand this. We are happy to be the people who actually build an interface. So this can actually, they can just come up to you and talk to you. So, you know, as I was describing, we did the ZooSci thing, and then we were thinking about it, and then I was thinking about having this visual interface. And then I was talking to somebody that I know. There's somebody who, her name is Kim. She's actually doing this thing called On-Chain City. So what she's trying to do is nation states actually have like existence in, real physical infrastructure. Can you actually bring some of this infrastructure on chain? And I was having this
Okay.
conversation. I was saying, yeah, what do you require in that sense from a cryptographic perspective? And I realized, okay, it will be like a combination of some ZK and some MPC. And it's easy for me to understand it, and easy for me to verify that. It's easy for me to build that primitive and deploy it. And she could literally work with somebody who could actually do some solidity and build a protocol and deploy it. That is what I was thinking as like the thing that will add value to everybody. Bring, the computational verifiability, the kind of guardrails that cryptography, which is like FHEs, MPCs, ZK, NTEs, could bring to you. So if you are somebody who's building a BCI, brain computer interface, as you probably already recognize, like the fact that BCIs could actually have a lot of implications to privacy, like
Huge.
just imagine, right?
It can just
You
read
know,
everything from your brain if it really works.
yeah, not just the read bit, right? Putting thoughts in,
That's
right?
true. They
That's
can
that,
alter
like,
memories.
absolutely. So, we just saw science fiction movies kind of articulating this, and it is almost there, right? And what is it? That's a guardrail. So it just happens that I have been thinking about it. I actually gave a talk about it in 2016. So I think, I can't remember the title of the talk, but literally I talk about this, like, it's your thoughts and how do you prove it's yours, right? How do you prove
Hmm.
it's come from somebody else, right?
So am I
So
putting
all
another
of
chip
this,
in my brain to make sure the other chips don't affect my brain?
this is an open question we don't have answers to. But all I could say to you is like we might have a slightly better odds if we start thinking about cryptographic
If you
primitives.
prepare.
And yes, absolutely. And make it easy for other people to do it. So it's not going to be like a super, super hard, like every BCI project um, inventor, founder, expecting them to have a PhD in cryptography, have a ZK scheme in their name. Like, all those
You
things
don't
is
need to.
impossible. So you absolutely need to bring out a very usable mechanism by which you could just do drag and drop, and
Yeah.
probably some other mechanisms like LLM to help you understand what's happening. In terms of when you do verification, the verification throws out a bunch of comments, which is effectively normally geek gobbledygook, which only understood by the people who understand all the zero knowledge intricacies. So you could attach an LLM there. But again, all of this requires quite a bit of effort, quite a bit of thinking, a team that has expertise, and a lot of, I would say a good amount of work need to be done so this can actually happen. And the other thing that we need to all
Sure.
recognize, yeah, is the fact that we have a running risk of AGI, right? So
Sure.
when that happens, we would have absolutely nothing left in that sense. So between now till then, there's AGI. The AGI is accelerating BCI, right? Brain computer interfaces,
Side by
right?
side.
Yeah, and also increasing the existential risk from hybrid risk. So the way I would describe it is, imagine you had an LLM, and an LLM actually wanted to, do harm to humanity. We already saw what COVID virus could do, right? So imagine an LLM having access to a sequencer, creating a sequence as a virus, and you can only imagine where that could go, right? So that was
It's
my talk. So
nuts.
like I'll send you the link to my talk in Switzerland. So
Please.
literally, yeah. So this is literally what it was, and we wanted to do something to, I don't think we can actually stop everything from happening, but one needs to try, and you need to try all the right things. So this is an attempt in the right direction. We have a bunch of people who are very, very, very motivated by the large existential risk. So our advisors are Nell. So Nell is my classmate from SU. She was the person with whom I have this charity on ethics of AI. Then Anders and I had the original paper on hybrid risk. So, we both understand what we're talking about in terms of hybrid risk. And he has done more work than a lot of people combined, right? And there's another friend of mine called Steve Mahandro. So, again, all these people who we know each other because we are all from the small community of people who do existential risk. And then, we are in a place where we want to do something and we are looking for people to collaborate. The people who really want to work on DSI or BCI or other things where there is
So
real
decentralized
value.
science.
Hmm.
Sorry to interrupt there, but like
Please.
I know
Yeah.
decentralized science is a branch of crypto, or however
Yeah.
you want to say it, vice versa. Like
Yeah.
crypto is a branch of
Yeah.
science
Yeah.
that is called decentralized science.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to learn more about it, because I don't want to go more in detail, because again, I know you have to
Yeah.
leave in a couple minutes, and I
Yeah.
want to be mindful of that. What would
Yeah.
be a good pointer for us to learn? And if there are any good speakers, who should we get them onboarded here?
Okay, I think this is a very tricky spot to be. Okay, you caught me on a tricky spot. So there are two sets of people on either side of this argument. So I think Tarun Chitra is like very much against this DSI thing, right? And then there's
Okay.
on the pro side, Vitedao Paul and the rest of the guys, Vitedao and Bio guys are there, right? So I am kind of cautiously optimistic. That's what I would say. The reason I say that is, there was this panel organized in Dubai. It's part of Token 2049, and a couple of founders were on the panel, and the person who was actually organizing the panel was Astrid, somebody I know from Smith. And the question was asked, like, how big are all these things and how much of change might happen? And as a member of the audience, I asked the question: look, if you take the top 5 cryptocurrencies and sum it all up, how much do they come to? And if you take the top 5 pharma companies, not even the insurance, right? Just the pharma, right? That's
Yeah.
like in trillions, right? So
Yeah.
when you have, and this is the other bit we need to recognize, how many crypto protocols have been around more than 10 years, right? We can count them, right?
Yeah.
So now the question is, like, when you want to do drug discovery, it's like anywhere between 5 to 12 years, right? Number one. Number two is somewhere around 0.8 billion to 1.5 or 2.5 billion, right? That's the total amount
Sure.
of cost to just create a drug. So
Yeah.
given all this, now what are the odds that you would be able to do drug discovery in DSI? I am deeply cynical, right? And the other
Hmm.
part that doesn't help any of the cause is, like, again, as I was saying, like, I've had many hats. One of the hats I wore in 2002 was working on bioinformatics and computational drug discovery. And I've actually, over time, has given multiple talks. So one of the talks, my first starter talk in 2012, I was talking about translational bioinformatics. And like, so I have a fairly, plus the fact that I went to med school, a fairly good idea of how this game is. Not that I'm a scientist who does drug discovery day in and day out, but I understand the process, right? I understand exactly what has happened. I understand the pharmacology or pharmacokinetics and all the rest of the things, not just, the other side of it. There are very few of us. This goes back to the other question I was saying, like, how many doctors have actually spent 25 years in cryptography, right?
It's the combination
How
of
many?
two technologies.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, like a lot of them, right? So it's like the probability that happens becomes smaller and smaller. The number of people who have the right level of competence to actually be able to achieve the results as required becomes smaller and smaller. And this is the problem we are having with, DeSci, right? DeSci might have
Gotcha.
real breakthrough effect. And I want to give you the other side of this argument, so you fully understand why I
Yeah,
say this.
yeah. Tell me.
When you look at the early discoveries in science, so the so-called constructor gentleman scientist, right? So a period in time when the golden age of science was there, there was this construct of gentleman scientists, the people who wanted to do find elements, laws in physics, laws in electrodynamics, thermodynamics, right? These are all gentleman scientists. They did this in their spare time and they had day jobs, right? And
Yep.
if that could be the model in which you could progress science, absolutely that can happen. And also, I should highlight the fact that if you look at the pace at which computation and AI has been progressing, so people do quote AlphaFold and say AlphaFold could actually reduce the time it takes for drug discovery and things like that. That is a bit of a mixed bag. Okay, let me explain what that means. So typically, the largest amount of time that you take is the trial periods, like clinical trials. Everything else you can actually speed it up a bit. You can't actually, at least until now, we haven't been able to replace humans with clinical trials with. I mean, it could be
Yeah.
regulatory to a very large extent, but still, we have not been able to do that, right? So what I'm saying is like, yes, we can have good results. We could have gentleman science coming up being supported by DSI. We could have breakthroughs. At the same time, we had to be realistic at what is it that we pick up as a target for going after before we go after that. But like if it's unlikely that DSI can actually support hundreds of projects, each of them billions of dollars worth, each of them need to work for tens of years. Unlikely. It is unlikely that
True.
DSI is going to be able to support or raise the money required to go to Mars. Let's put it that way, right? If your plan is to go to
Fair.
Mars, right, or you want to do discovery of whatever in a comet, Andromeda, right? Not happening.
Not gonna happen. All right. No, that's totally helpful. So I know we are coming to an end of this conversation. So is there any closing remark you have, Anish, or anything else, or you okay with
Uh,
me closing it?
yeah, I mean, what I would say is like, I think, human progress, is always driven by belief systems. The reason that humans are able to do things we are able to do is because A, we can communicate, and B, we have beliefs, right? So,
100%.
okay, so, and I see the whole of L1s and L2s and Web3 as part of a belief system. And, belief systems have been good and bad. I was telling you during the conversation, we had, you know, the wars, right? Crusades, as I would call it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would prefer humanity make progress without crusades. If that were a wish, I would love for that to be true. That would be my 2 cents.
That's amazing. With that, thank you so much, Anish, for coming in. I just wanted to, like, Anish, I've known you for a long time. I know that you are not, again, a core Ethereum builder, but you have been a builder for like the entire crypto space for a long time, have strong
Yeah,
opinions, and then you
yeah,
present your opinions very strongly and correctly. So,
yeah.
again, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. For everyone
Thank
else
you.
who has been viewing us, we are celebrating 10 years of Ethereum by highlighting amazing builders in the space. As you heard Anish, he's builder in the crypto space, but at the same time, he has leading frontiers that he's building out on the AI space, on the zero knowledge proof space, in the biology phase, and the research phase, and a lot of other places with his double PhDs and double, like, I don't know how many PhDs he got, man. That's just like, I stopped counting. But again, thank you so much. For everyone else, thanks for joining. Please uh, make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe, make sure you retweet. We want to get as many people involved in this celebration as possible. So thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us, Anish.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.